Well, hello guys. Welcome to our live. I haven't done one of these in, I want to say, a few months now. So kind of excited to get this going again. Had a good time doing these lives. And today, actually, give us just a few seconds here. We're going to make sure we get everyone tagged here. So let me just ping the team. Tag on Facebook. But yeah, today we're gonna basically be talking about the real estate market, some local events. What else are we gonna be talking about, guys?
How this past week has been, a few things that we've picked up as far as things that we've been listening to, podcasts, books.
Things that we're diving deeper into, what we're doing with our farm, implementing cold calling a little bit more, a little bit anything.
Some real world real estate experiences.
Awesome. And so we have Jake and Gavin here with me today. And first we're gonna dive in a bit more into the market. And so we're gonna share just a few things once we get everything fine-tuned. Usually takes us just a couple minutes to make sure everything's sounds good. And you guys, okay, sounds good, it sounds like. So we got that green light there. But we're planning on going about 30 minutes or so. Of course, no set limit, but we're gonna just kind of dive in. Feel free to post any questions you guys have on YouTube, or sorry, not on YouTube. I think this is mostly on Facebook, and then we'll be posting this afterwards as we dive into the market. We actually also went to a new restaurant in Murrieta, which was a pretty cool experience with some really good food. So we'll share a little bit about that new restaurant in town. And looks like we got the green light. Looks like we're good to go. So anyway, feel free to drop any questions you guys have or comments. Or if you guys think we're full of crap, feel free to go ahead and share those comments as well. But we're basically here in my office, and I've got Jake and Gavin here just on the other side of me. We've got two cameras just so you can kind of see the two different angles here. But looking forward to it. So first off, guys, we've got the market, which is obviously been interesting these last few months. What we have been seeing is, as I think almost everyone knows, I feel like everyone's kind of seen some of the headlines on the news and just what's been happening around us, is the market has definitely shifted. And the main factors that truly have caused this shift in the market, one is obviously interest rates being pushed up significantly. Rates were down into what? As low as the high twos. Low threes was like the norm. And now where are we at?
Over
like
5.
Yeah, we're pushing over 5. They've been kind of going up and down a little bit. But obviously that makes a huge difference on payments and what people can afford. I was calculating a property that I purchased pretty recently for $900K. I put 25% down, I believe, and my payment was almost $1,000. I don't think it was quite $1,000 difference, but it was $4,000 with the rate I got, which was closer to 3%. And I think at the rate of like 5.5, it was like $800 higher. So obviously that puts a lot of pressure on what people can afford. So if you're like, if I was a buyer at that point and I didn't get anything, it would be the difference of me affording $900K down to probably about $700, $750K. So that puts a lot of downward pressure on the market in terms of prices and what people can afford. And then we also have seen the last 2-3 months, we've been seeing a lot of inventory. We've been getting a lot more listings. We're seeing inventory creep up actually pretty quick right here in our local market of Temecula Valley, right, guys?
Almost 50%.
Yeah, so roughly, yeah, like Gavin's saying, 50% or so. And so between the higher interest rates, inventory increasing, my take on the market is we're definitely seeing a shift downward. We're no longer in a market where you can continue to price it 3-5% above the highest comps. Like, you have to price it right, and pricing it right isn't even necessarily at the highest comps. How would you guys suggest pricing on a property? in today's market.
You have to be careful with pricing. We're in that market to where you have to be aware of what people are doing in the market, and you have to look at your situation and see what's best for you. If you can list higher and wait it out, yeah, that price may come. It may come with a couple of price drops, but it just depends on your situation. If you're still looking for your property to move quickly, you have to price aggressively at comps or even below comps, so you're being competitive with your listing compared to others. Right now, it seems to be the most amount of eyeballs you get on your property, the most amount of offers you get. You have to get people in the door. And that starts with pricing.
What do you think, Jake? What do you think pricing wise? And I have my opinion. I'll give my 2 cents out to you guys. But
I mean, I agree. There's kind of a weird balance of trying to finagle that, but things that are priced high are just sitting.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have to price reduce. And then that gives way more kind of leverage to the buyers for them to ask for closing costs and different things like that. So
definitely
pricing it right and then getting a bunch of eyeballs on it is how you're going to get your list price sold at that price or maybe above or close to
100%. Yeah, guys. So whether you're buying, whether you're selling, whether you're an agent, whatever, like pricing is so key. And I've already made a mistake, I would say a few times, where I've recommended too high. In this market, you've definitely got to price more aggressively. That's going to be the way that you're able to sell quickly. I think it's important to sell quickly, right? Because 2 weeks, 4 weeks, that just means more and more inventory coming on the market, because that's the trend right now, right? We're seeing more inventory hit the market. That means more competition for your listing. So you want to sell today, not in 2 weeks and not in 4 weeks, because the way the market's looking and the way the trends are going currently, at least for the next 3 to 6 months, is there's a downward trend, which means you need to price it right from the beginning. If the comps are at 720, you need to list at 700. You need to be priced a percent or a couple percent, whatever, below the highest comp, because you want a lot of activity and you want to sell within the next week or two. Is always going to be better than the next 4 to 6 weeks, because the market is better today than it's going to be in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, right? Because essentially, and not that we're seeing a crazy drop or anything, but we are seeing a decline because of the pressure of the interest rates going up and the pressure of the inventory going up as well. And so you got to be careful. If I'm listing my own personal property, and the comps are all around, let's say 630, 625, whatnot, I'm probably going to be listing at about 600 because I want to get a lot of traction. And if I'm going in well below the other properties, I'm going to get a number of offers and be able to leverage them up still. Whereas my opinion was a bit different 6 months ago, right? Like, because if they were 625, 630, we were seeing 20, 25, 30K above that, right? But the market's changed. It's a little bit more of a normal market. Homes are still selling. There's still a good amount of demand, but there's definitely a shift. So you've got to be more aggressive when it comes to your pricing. Anything else you guys want to add to that?
No, just by personal experience. This past week, we helped submit an offer for a client. The house was priced aggressively. It was lower than what I would ever expect that house to be priced at because it was in an awesome neighborhood. But because of that, they've had multiple offers. Other houses that were listed, or if that would have been listed at 20, 30K above what it was listed at, would have sat.
Totally.
And so now there's competition, and we're trying our best with that.
100%. We've totally been seeing it a lot. And like, we were just talking about how last weekend open houses were slow, and we're talking about 4 or 5 different open houses that us and our team did over the last weekend. Gavin, what did you see based on, what do you think, why do you think that was the case? Last weekend was slow, and maybe that's not everyone. I'm sure there's certain exceptions out there in terms of really hot property and stuff, but generally speaking, we saw activity was pretty dang slow this last weekend.
We definitely did. And it wasn't just us either. I mean, I contacted other agents on purpose to see kind of what their properties were like. My properties were slow. We had the busiest one was in Canyon Lake with 8 people came through on a Sunday. But some other ones got 0 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday. Given it was back to school weekend, so I don't know if that had something to do with it. I feel like it did. But even the weekend before was still not the best like it was 6 months ago, of course. So that obviously comes with what your team is doing for marketing, and that comes with what the agent that's there is doing with those signs to drive that street traffic to the house, that people who aren't going out to look at open houses still might stop by just to have that conversation. So there's a lot that goes into that.
Totally. Cool. And I think you bring up a good point. It's like the difference between a real estate professional and just a real estate agent that's just going to do the minimal to get by. This is the market where it's more important to have that true real estate professional that's going to go the extra mile, whether it be the open house, whether it be the education, whether it be the leveraging one offer from another. All those things are so key, so important in today's market more than ever, just because we're seeing that major shift in the market. Because if I poorly advise a client to list their property too high, what's going to happen is they're going to shoot themselves, or we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot, right? Because we're potentially going to lose out on $10, $15, $20, $25,000 if it goes into month 2 and we're still on the market, right? So it's important, guys, that you work with someone that truly understands the market, right? And that us as real estate agents, for any of the real estate agents watching, price properly, guys. We've got to definitely be a bit, we have to just be upfront with our clients. Let them know, like, hey, guys, you're priced too high. We need to be at 700. 725 is just too high. Yes, your neighbor did sell at 725, but the market has changed. You know, that buyer who bought that home for 725, that's when rates were at 3%. They can no longer get that, afford 725. They're now at 625, and so you got to think about those things and different strategies of really just making sure people price properly. So I guess long story short, market shifted, guys. We're seeing it firsthand. We're expecting it throughout the end of the year. But at the same time, be careful about what you listen to on the news and stuff. I feel like it's mostly doom and gloom, right? Is that what you guys are seeing?
Yeah.
And so be careful. Like 10% drop, which is what I think we'll roughly see here over the next few months, is not significant, really, when we've seen 20% increases over the last couple of years, right? So 20% up in 2020, 20% up again in 2021. We went up roughly 5-10% already, I believe, in the beginning part of this year. And now if we drop 10-15%, is it really that significant? Unless you purchased just recently, it shouldn't be that significant of an impact, right?
To that point, I think right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think right now is a great time for people that have owned their house long-term or in the last 2-3 years. If they're looking to either upgrade or move, this is a great time because you have a ton of equity in your house, and you're still going to sell and get a bunch of equity. But on the flip side, it's kind of shifting into a levelized market where you can buy and get closing costs or get things that you never could have done 6 months ago.
100%.
So you're kind of saying like the little bit of money that you're losing from 6 months ago, you might be able to make up on the buyer side with the right property.
For sure. Oh yeah, and that's a good point. Like the reality is, like, for some people, my recommendation is, hey, just wait off a few months before you buy it. But if you're a buyer, you're at the end of the lease, they're selling that property, it could be a great time to buy, even if you think it's going to drop 5-10%. It still may make more sense, or it could make sense to where we advise you to stay put for a few months type of thing. Like it really depends on the individual situation and circumstances, right? Because if someone, I guess we can even share like the example of the seller or the buyer that we just helped, that they needed to do a 1031 exchange. They ended up buying 2 properties. Like it made sense for them. They were doing a 1031 exchange. They needed to identify actually a couple properties in our area because they were selling, I believe, a 4-plex, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that. And they ended up buying 2 properties in the Temecula area that had to equate to roughly 1.8 million. And they had to identify within 45 days and close within 180 days as the 1031 dictates. But they were able to do that and able to essentially cash flow more than what they were cash flowing with their 4-plex, from what I understand. And so there's certain circumstances to where it just makes sense to still buy in today's market. And the other one you mentioned is obviously the fact, like, if someone's doing a sideways lateral move where they're selling and buying, like that can make sense, right? Because you lose a little bit on the sell, but you're gaining on the buy.
Right.
Was there something else you want to share on the 1031?
No. I mean, and we were able to do it really quickly because there were homes that were perfect for their situation. They had the cash, and we were able to leverage to get both of those homes under list price.
Totally, right. So yeah, you have more leverage on the buy side. Just keep in mind, you probably lose a little bit on the sell side. But yeah, I think that's what's important for us as real estate professionals. Like, we need to educate, we need to understand your situation, your scenario. Actually, Gavin and myself, we just went on a listing appointment where they're moving to the East Coast. Like, it makes sense for them to sell their situation. Do you want to share a little bit about their situation and why it just makes sense for them to sell?
The one that we went on last night?
The one where they're gonna potentially stay in the yacht.
Okay, so yeah, we went to this listing appointment. They went on vacation on the East Coast, and they just said, you know what? We can transfer out here for work. We have all this equity on our home. Let's do it. Let's go. We work from home. So a lot of people who do that, they're just like, hey, let's take our equity. They went and bought a $60,000 yacht, and they're going to go live on that and then find out where they want to live on the East Coast after that. Just the way that they're allowed to do it right now because of how much equity they have. Even though we're in a little bit more of an average market, they still have so much money in equity based on the last 4 years of that percent going up. So yeah, it's still, depending on your situation, what you can do, it's a great time. And another thing that kind of crazy to think about is for like your 1031 exchange, those clients had a fourplex and they decided to sell at the right time, get their money into a 1031 exchange, and now they're cash flowing more money on 2 single-family residence properties in Temecula than they are on their. Do you know where their fourplex was?
It was in somewhere in LA.
So LA fourplex compared to 2 Temecula properties, that's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
You have less tenants, you have less liability in a nicer area that's going to continue to appreciate than a fourplex, in my opinion. And they got in and they have all that tax advantage. Pretty insane.
Definitely, right. No tax consequences, right? That's the benefits of doing the 1031 exchange. And that's kind of a good segue into really wealth building, right, guys? Like, the importance of really finding ways to help our clients or just anyone to build wealth through real estate and how they can do that, right? Whether it's you're starting with your very first property or you're buying your 4th, 5th, 6th property. Like, we want to help you guys start creating wealth through real estate. I think we've all heard the saying where I think it's over 80%, 90% of millionaires are made through real estate. It is so true. I'm trying to think, we talked to a client just a few days ago. I want to say he was a CPA or tax advisor or something.
Yeah.
Okay, do you remember him?
Yeah, he got the idea of real estate from his job. So he's CPA, and he said, all these people are making millions of dollars off of real estate. I make good money. Why aren't I doing this?
Yeah.
So he just reached out and through actually Bigger Pockets, which is a podcast.
Yeah. And
now look, he's pre-approved. We're looking as a buyer for him, and he's going to be able to cash flow and have a tax advantage through listening to podcasts and his job, which is great.
Right, totally. And that's actually a good kind of plug for Bigger Pockets, right, guys? If you guys are interested in kind of learning a little bit more about investing in real estate and how to create wealth truly through real estate, because we all know how beneficial that can be. And I think I've shared on a couple occasions just how I've been able to create a pretty good amount of wealth just in the last 5 years when I really got more intentional about buying real estate. But when I broke it down, and I didn't know this until I broke it down just a few weeks ago, the amount of equity wealth created, and that means what? Appreciation of the properties. And I've purchased, I'm at a total of 12 units currently. It was over 3 million in wealth. And that's just because, and that's in 5 years.
In just equity?
In just equity. And that's not to mention cash flow, right? We know there's multiple ways to really leverage real estate to create more wealth. And that's really what we want to do here at Trillion Real Estate. Is like, we really want to not only create wealth ourselves, but we want to help our clients understand how they can create wealth. And there's a few different ways, essentially 4 different ways that you can create wealth through real estate. You guys want me to put you on the spot? All right, go with the easy ones first, guys. What are the first couple that you guys think of? Obviously, we just mentioned one of them.
Which purchasing your own home for one, right?
Totally, yeah. I mean, that's obviously great, but where the wealth really starts to be created is as you continue to buy more property, right?
Fix and flips, buying a property, fixing it up and selling it for more. That can build you quick, equity on a home and pull the cash out of that when you sell it. You got the BRRRR method, which is kind of very similar to that, right? Or is it the same thing?
Buy, basically rehab, refinance, repeat, right?
So that's where so the BRRRR method is where you buy, you rehab, you keep it, and then you refinance that house to pull money out to buy the next property.
Exactly, which is a great method, especially if you have limited cash.
Correct.
So guys, I'll kind of just dive in really quick on that one, just because I think that is an important strategy, because most of us, we don't just have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in the bank to be able to invest in real estate. So one of the best strategies truly to get your first one that could lead to the second and third and fourth is doing the BRRRR method, which is essentially you buy, let's say you buy a property for $300K, but after the repairs, it's worth $400K. Let's say you put $20K into it, now it's worth $400K. You refinance it to pull out the cash, and then you go on to the next one.
You continue renting that property out.
And then you rent out the property. Hopefully you still cash flow. In an ideal world, you're cash flowing on that property. You pull that cash back out, you buy the next property and do the same thing. It can be a little tricky. You've got to find the right real estate professional that truly understands that process and what that looks like, and also has the good vendors to help them in the rehab, and also the lenders that can help them do the refi and everything. But it's definitely a great strategy for anyone who has limited cash, which is most of us. Let's be real. But essentially, so we have obviously the BRRRR method. Those are different strategies of investing in real estate. One is flipping. Flipping is a little bit more challenging right now, just because obviously the market's tilted the other way at the moment. There's still opportunities out there. I think we've seen a number ourselves. But when it comes to long-term investing, it's a pretty safe way of really doing 4 things. And these were kind of the 4 things I was shooting for. But one is appreciation. Even if we see a slight drop over the next few months, we're expecting, what do you think the prices are going to be like in 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Obviously, it's going to be better, right? Because long term, we know that real estate's always going to appreciate. So appreciation is one. You're going to build equity over the long term just through appreciation. Number 2 is going to be cash flow. So on a recent purchase that I did, the mortgage is $1,400. My rent is $2,000. That's from day one, brand new property purchased in Florida. That's the cash flow aspect, right? And so cash flowing $500, $400 after all expenses, great, whatever. For me, it's just a long-term investment. That's the second way you're able to basically make money through real estate. Third, we've got depreciation, where you're able to take advantage on your taxes and essentially eliminate. Obviously, you've got to structure it properly, but by using the depreciation on the properties you purchased, you'll be able to knock off tens of thousands of dollars of income potentially by using that depreciation. And then the number 4 is that you've got tenants paying down your mortgage. So if your mortgage today is at $250,000, in a few years from now, obviously it's the tenants that are paying it down. And a few years from now it's $230,000. It just continues to go down, right? So you're essentially making money in 4 different ways, all essentially while we sleep, right? Passively making wealth through real estate. And that is why real estate is just so awesome and is such a great tool in terms of ways for us all to create wealth and create freedom. It's not just the wealth, it's not just the money, but it's the ability to have that freedom in the future. Like we have Gavin here, who's only 21, right? And if he starts early buying his first property, second property, and so forth, like imagine at the age of 30 where he would be at compared to someone who hasn't started to invest in real estate.
And I mean, it's happening today for us personally, right? We found a property, it may make sense to do it, so we jump on it. We contact James, our lender here in Temecula, and say, hey, does this make sense to us? Do these numbers make sense? And if it does, overall, then we pull the trigger. And other ways of doing it, except for just ourselves, how we're doing it for clients, is a lot of people right now, you're cold calling them, because right now, since it's a little bit slower, we're going deep into like cold calling. People that say, hey, I've lived here for 20 years, I'm not looking to move, where would I go? Well, that's not where the conversation stops. The conversation just starts there. Okay, well, have you ever thought of buying your second property with the equity that you've gained in your home? So the way that I'm going about it when I'm cold calling people is that strategy there is, okay, well, that's great. You've made all this money, but what are you doing with that money? Let's use it. Let's buy that second property. Let's get renters in there and have more money when you go to retire.
Right.
So to go into more of like what we're doing because of the changed market, I've been diving deep into cold calling. Not only is that helping with my scripts, talking to clients in these methods, but also informing people about what you can do with real estate investing.
And again, now is a great time for that because you have maybe some leverage as a buyer, and rents. I haven't heard of rents going down.
Oh, for sure.
Rents don't really go down. So this is an excellent time to find those properties that can cash flow positive, give you some extra money on top of whatever that mortgage payment is.
Definitely. Right. And that's actually in this type of market, guys, it's more important to cash flow, in my opinion. And again, that's why it's so important to truly work with someone that understands these different strategies, is because in this market, cash flow is more important, right? Because if you cash flow and the market drops by 10, let's say it drops by 20%. That means a property that is what, 600,000 drops all the way down to 480. That's pretty significant, right? If I'm doing the math right. But if you're cash flowing $400 or $500 on that property or whatever, your positive cash flow, do you really care? Right? Because you're right. Historically speaking, rents always go up over the long term.
Yeah.
Like always. Like even through the depressions, guys, and even through the times where we saw a lot of foreclosures, rents go up, surprisingly, because people are losing their homes and they're going, where are they going? They're going into rentals, right? And so anyway, cash flow is more important in a market like this where we're seeing a bit of a decline. And even if that decline becomes somewhat more significant, cash flow is more important, guys, in that market. So yeah, great points. One other thing I want to mention that I've noticed that kind of goes along with this topic is short-term rentals. Short-term rentals can be great. We've definitely got a couple local influencers that have been sharing, about some of those successes with short-term rentals. It's been a great market the last 2-3 years with short-term rentals in terms of everyone just seemed to have lots of money and everyone's traveling and COVID really instigated a lot of travel and a lot of the short-term rentals. But what I'm noticing recently is that demand has actually slowed down a bit. So you've got to be a little bit more conservative when it comes to short-term rentals. Have you guys seen anything on short-term rentals?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen the successes from local agents that own, short-term rentals in our local area. That's just insane.
Yeah.
Like Dylan Hall with Abundance. I mean, he posts about it all the time with his in the wine country. Insane numbers when it comes to it. And the way that his tips and tricks are on how to use the Airbnb as a tool to do that. Like if he rents it out on the weekend, it pays for that month's. If he just rents it out on the weekends throughout the months, he breaks even. But then if he gets 1 or 2 during the week throughout the month,
that's extra cash.
That's all extra cash flow.
For sure.
And that's happening for people all over the place.
Yeah.
Like the biggest ones that we can think of is the places near like events, like Stagecoach, condos out there. Just money pits basically. Because they're always going to get rented out. in our area, it's very limited for short-term rentals. We have to go outside, and you have to be a little bit more of a different type of buyer. You have to have a little bit more money to make it work out here in the Temecula area for short-term, right?
Oh, for sure. And Jake, you could probably speak on that a little bit more. Do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, we've been helping clients as far as they were coming from out of area. We were looking for a short-term rental situation for them here. And of course, Temecula City boundaries, Temecula City doesn't allow it. So you have to go unincorporated, which is Temecula wine country, and out there, which means prices are pretty high as far as purchasing.
Yeah.
It can be tricky, but it's there. It's out there.
Totally. Yeah. So Temecula is tough, guys. Wine country though, and I have a few friends that are helping a few people that are doing short terms out there. They're making a killing out there. But yeah, we're talking, obviously, most properties out in wine country are $1 million plus. And they're kind of far and few between the good ones that I've seen out there. And so you've got to obviously be a little strategic in terms of what type of property to pursue in wine country, but there's a lot of opportunity. But also one other thing to think about is because it's so difficult, almost impossible, essentially in Temecula, at least in incorporated Temecula and Murrieta, there are opportunities outside of the incorporated areas, such as in French Valley, Winchester areas. And so those are areas that you could potentially purchase short-term rentals and where the numbers really can make sense. But the big difference between short-term and the long-term, short-term, typically you're gonna be able to get much better returns, much higher cost to have someone manage that. Essentially, I wanna say it runs between 20 to 30% in cost to have someone manage a short-term rental. Long-term rental, not as sexy in terms of your returns, cap rates and stuff, or even your ROI, cash on cash return. But it's easier too, right? You just rent it out, you're getting your 5, 6, 7% coming back, and that's only going to grow via the 4 different ways that real estate can provide for additional wealth creation. All right, awesome, guys. We're already at 33 minutes here. Any other topics you guys wanted to dive into a little bit?
I like food. We're going off topic a little bit with real estate. I just have to mention, we all like food here at Trillium. I'm sure everybody does, but I'm kind of a foodie. So I just have to report, this past week we went to, it's called Goy Thai.
It was delicious.
Grand opening last week, which is right off of Los Alamos exit, off of the 215. Right kind of by the CVS there. I got the drunken noodles, best drunken noodles I've had. Really good.
I thought it was good. Gavin, did you not like it or what?
No,
I ended up getting spicy.
I went a little bit too confident on the spice level. But no, I got the drunken noodles. It was great. I've never had it before, but it was great. And for the opening day, service-wise, great.
Yeah. It was a little delayed, let's be honest. But of course, that's to be expected because they were doing like grand opening and everything. There was a ton of people there.
They had ribs. What were their ribs?
Oh yeah, the ribs were so good. You guys got to try that.
That was a good
but yeah, totally. Like, I think a lot of people actually know how we're kind of food snobs over at Trillion, and we love trying new places. The Thai food there, Goy, and kudos to Melissa, who's the owner. They basically, did it freeze up?
Oh, what's up? We're good here.
No, we're good. But essentially, it's more like very authentic. Like the food had lots of spices and tasted extremely authentic. But yeah, great stuff. You guys, if you haven't had some good Thai food in the area, there's actually a few different great options. But definitely give Goy a try. They have kind of buffet style of some food that's like ready to go if you're just going there for a quick lunch. And then they also have meals, obviously, that they'll prepare from scratch. And both options are amazing. They have their green curry, mango curry, the drunken noodles. They've got the rib, all sorts of stuff. But everything was really good. So yeah, try it out, guys. We want to support our local businesses. Goy, what was it? Goy Express Thai Food.
Yeah.
So check it out, guys. That's right off of Los Alamos. You guys also know. I guess just talking about food makes me think of I feel like everyone that sees me or interacts with me always mentions tacos because everyone knows we love tacos and they're always posting about tacos. Our favorite taco joint currently is Taqueria Indio. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And that's out of
out in Paris. They
Yeah,
just opened up their store.
out in Paris, over by the Cardenas out there. The tricky thing is they're only open from 4 to 11, and it's only Thursday to Sunday, right?
Yeah.
And so you got to be careful with that, guys. Feel free to hit us up. We know all the good taco joints. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, Temecula doesn't have any great taco joints.
Yes,
Just to be real. Unless you're looking for American tacos, maybe you'll find some decent ones out there.
Maybe you'll find something.
But we really like the real deal, authentic Mexican tacos. Anyway, cool guys. Any other topics we wanted to hit real quick before we wrap this up?
Anybody want to we just want to go around, each of us give tips to agents in this market, what you think we should do?
For consumers or for agents?
For agents. Last little bit, like, hey, what do you think with this change on market? What should we be doing? What are we doing? You want to start with you, Tyson?
Me? You started. This is your question, bro.
Okay, so like for me, obviously buyer pool has lessened. So diving more deep on cold calling, following up with your farm, and diving deeper into each category of what you're doing. How can you dive deeper into, if you already do open houses, what can you do to better that? If you're already doing cold calling, what can you do to better that? If you have a farm, why aren't you diving deeper into your farm? You have a slowdown, let's come up with systems and processes that make your job easier when the time is hot. That's what I'm focusing on in the last few weeks.
Good.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
I mean, I see it as a benefit. It's kind of crazy to hear that there are some agents that maybe are getting out of the industry because of whatever, because of fear.
Dude, that's happening a lot right now.
I think that's crazy.
I share.
Maybe
Sorry,
I'm
let me
sharing
interrupt you
less.
real quick, but it's like, dude, if there's any agents watching this, like the reality is like I've heard of a few agents getting into essentially different types of employment, which is, I guess it's to be expected, right? It's like through these shifts, there's going to be roughly, who knows, 20 to 40% less transactions. So it's not going to be as easy as it was the last couple of years. So agents are getting out of the business, right? And for the most part, it's going to be the agents that were maybe 1 foot in, 1 foot out,
Already.
or not really that dedicated, motivated, because as we all know, you've got the majority of realtors that are making, let's say $40,000, $50,000, but you've got the top agents making hundreds of thousands of dollars and sometimes even into the millions, right? And there's a big difference. And what separates the guys down here and the guys up here is really just work ethic and your ability to adjust to the market and just work hard, right? Sorry for cutting off.
No,
Keep going, Jack.
that was my exact point. I don't know. I don't know why anybody would get out when, if you can establish yourself better and better during this time, during those hot peak times, it's going to just get that much better.
So what are you going to do? What are a couple of things?
Well, one thing for sure is like myself and Gavin are really working and focusing on our farm. We have a geographic area that we're really trying to bring value to. I have a listing coming in there. And then we're doing some community service type things and get-togethers to help build that. But also just like, it's been fun. And I come from solar, so I'm used to like door knocking and cold calling. And so we're diving more deeply into cold calling, which has been fun.
Yeah.
You never know what's on the other end of that.
Totally, yeah. But I mean, you're just staying busy. And it's
Yeah.
the people that are willing to do the work that most won't. And I know I probably say this all the time, but like, if you're willing to do the work that most won't, you're going to be the one that succeeds, right? And that's what I've seen over my 15, 20 years, whatever amount of time I've been in the business. Like, if you're willing to do the things that 95% of the agents aren't willing to do, you're going to succeed. The reality is 95% are not going to do the things that, or what it takes in order to really thrive in real estate. And it's not just real estate, it's really anything in life.
It's a perfect time to talk about this, because I think there's maybe some fear with a recession and all that sort of thing. It doesn't have to be that you're a real estate agent or whatever business or job you do, this is like a moment to grow a whole bunch and then to add a whole bunch of value and become a lot better.
And then once it gets hot again, you're so much better personally, and your team's better in your processes, that hot point is going to be quadruple what it could have been because you worked your tail off when it was slow. So,
right.
I mean,
totally. Yeah. Julio was saying 20% do 80%. And I feel like that's across most industries, but for sure, I would say it's true in real estate. It's like you got the top 20% doing 80% of the business. And again, it's because the top 20% are doing what the 80% won't do. And why is it that the top 20% in most cases, I feel like, are willing to share what it takes to be successful? It's because the 80% still aren't willing to put it to work. They're not going to do it. And, I hate to say it, but we know that. And so the top 20% continue to stay the top 20%. And that's just the way it's always been, right?
That's one of my favorite things about real estate. When I got in, all the top dogs were like, here's all my secrets. And it's like, well, why? Why would you ever share everything you're doing? And they flat out say, because odds are you're never going to do it. You're never going to do what I do to make this money. So I'm not worried about it. And it's day in and day out. It's so true. So it's, I love that about real estate.
And that's a great thing. We didn't really dive into Jake and Gavin. We have in a previous live, but they're both doing really well. Being new agents, they're both crushing it, and it's only gonna get better and better. And that's because they're just willing to do what the 80% aren't willing to do. And when you're willing to do that, you're gonna succeed and you're gonna be one of the best. Very, very true, Jordan. It's you work harder and you separate yourself from the field, and that's a true reality. And that's, again, you said it a couple times, but that's across everywhere, but especially in real estate. And that's part of the reason why we're even doing this live, right? Most would never do a live, right? We want to set ourselves apart. We want to be different. We want to be part of that 20% or that 5%, right? And that's why we want to educate, bring value, be able to really share things that are going to help others take their lives to another level. And the way we see it is that if we can help you guys figure out ways to create more wealth through real estate, then we're succeeding at our job. And so I would say that's probably one of our main reasons for wanting to do this live, which we're going to be doing every 2 weeks, is we want to share tips and ideas and motivate you guys to buy that first property. Because from my experience, in the last 5 years of me purchasing multiple properties, I've been pushing people to buy properties, and some have bought, but most haven't. What do you think is holding most people back?
The fear.
Yeah.
Jake, have I told you to buy? For how long have I been telling you to buy?
Yeah. No, you have been.
Or not even just you. Sorry to put you on the spot, but just you've heard me talking about this for a long time, right? Yeah. And like the reality is most people aren't buying, but some have. The ones that have bought, obviously, they're in a much better position, right? They now own real estate that is cash flowing, that is appreciated significantly, and they're in a better position today than they were 3 years, 4 years, 5 years ago. And at the same time, what did you want to say something, Jake?
Well, no. We all have to get after it.
Yeah. And Jake he's getting ready to buy a property, but another property, anyways. Sorry to put you on the spot.
I'm the one who doesn't own real estate here, not Jake.
Well,
Jake's got equity. I do not have a home, but
you guys understand the importance of it, and obviously that's something we preach a lot within our office and stuff. And obviously it's within your goals of things you're going to do and stuff. But what do you guys think are like the things that are holding people back? What would you say?
They think it costs money to reach out and learn. Lenders and real estate agents will talk to you for free, and they're not salespeople. They're just educating you on what's true. And if numbers make sense, then it makes sense to do it. So people are just scared to reach out, educate themselves. And then the biggest thing is pulling the trigger, getting pre-approved and doing it.
Yeah. I think once you do your first one, it makes everything so much easier. It's kind of addicting. At least for me, it was addicting. As soon as I did one and I saw like, okay, like it wasn't anything crazy. It's like nothing significant to where it's going to impact me significantly after one. But after 2, 3, 4, like once you get up to 5, 6, 7 properties, now each and every year, all the rents are going up, and obviously your cash flow is going up, and at the same time they're appreciating, and at the same time you've got 10 tenants paying down your mortgages. Now it's becoming significant, right? And that's the thing. It's like you got to start with number one. Once you get number one, keep it going and figuring out those ways to really start turning that into 2, into 3. I know I've actually had a call not too long ago, a few weeks ago, with Shelby Osborne, and she had got like 60 properties in a matter of a few years, I believe, 60 units or something.
In 3 years she got 55 properties, and she used VA as a trick to start out, and then obviously she was flipping properties at a lower bracket than like California prices, but it doesn't matter. When you have 60 properties under your belt, you're in a different world.
Oh yeah, it's all that strategy of all that cash flow and all that equity you're building up is just 10x, right? When you have that many properties.
And she just used the BRRRR method on every property.
Just
boom, boom, over and over again, and she's cash flowing.
And that's important too, because she was purchasing, like you were saying, in another market where much lower price point. There's still lower price point markets. Again, that's why it's so important to really work with someone that's doing this. And again, when I say real estate professional, they really got to understand buying investments. And there's a handful of agents out there that really do. Find those agents that understand purchasing investments. Do they buy them themselves? Do they have short-term rentals? Do they have long-term rentals? Do they understand the BRRRR method? Do they listen to podcasts to educate themselves, empower them by listening to podcasts like Bigger Pockets and other ones similar to it? I think Bigger Pockets is probably the biggest one that has to do with real estate investing, and I encourage anyone and everyone to listen to that one. But talk to someone who's already doing it. Unfortunately, the majority of real estate agents are not. Find the ones that truly understand it, that have really educated themselves, are either doing it themselves or have really dove in deep to understand the different methods of creating wealth through real estate. Anyway, guys, I know we're going well over right now. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up unless you guys have any final things to share.
No. We're hopefully going to push this more into, I'll put it on the line. I think we're going to push it more in the next coming weeks and videos into a podcast style and have it a little bit more legit production. So I'm going to put it out there, force us to do it. And we're going to do it every single 2 weeks, so bi-weekly, every Tuesday. And if it's not live, it'll be posted. And just get out here and talk in front of people and, get the conversation started.
100%. And that's a good point. Thanks, Gavin. I think the reality of us doing this live, we really, like I was saying, we want to provide value. We want people to change their mindset, number one, in terms of even just work ethic, right? But we also want people to start thinking like, how can we create freedom? How can we create wealth? How can we become better versions of ourselves? By becoming better versions of ourselves. Like, these are things I feel like a lot of people don't really talk about. But the more we talk about these things, the better we're going to be, whether it be in real estate, husbands, people in general. Like, we want to talk about these things that are going to help us become better people, create more wealth through real estate. That's going to create that freedom that will allow us to do the things that we really want to do, whether it be Jake being able to retire in 10 years or having $10,000 in cash flow, whatever his goal is or whatever your goal is. Like, those are some of the things we really want to talk about. Just loosely kind of talk about these things and these different strategies that I feel like aren't talked about enough. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah,
Wouldn't you say so? Like,
society, they're not.
I think it's a big reason why people don't do it. It's just kind of like education and people to just openly talk about it and give tips as to what they're doing.
100%.
That's next.
Yeah. And so great. We're going to be doing this every 2 weeks. Our setup hopefully will get better and better. That's our thing. Like, even with this, we're like, you know what, this first one that we do today is going to be a little rough, but we're hoping to continue to improve it. We really want to provide value. So if you guys have any thoughts or recommendations, please leave us comments. If it's negative, like, let us know. We don't care. Like, we want to know that negative feedback, positive feedback, and we really want to make this a good 30 to 60 minutes every couple of weeks to where we're providing value to you guys, because essentially, end of the day, 10 years from now, I want each one of you, anyone watching this, anyone really paying attention to this, to be doing better financially. And real estate is the best way to do that. And we want to share some of the different strategies, different ways that you can do that. And so that is really the big purpose of this podcast, along with just having a good time and chatting away about different local events and different new restaurants and things of that nature. We're going to be talking about those things. So stay tuned, guys. Thank you, Jake and Gavin. Thanks for being on. And we really appreciate everyone for jumping on here, guys. Feel free to reach out direct to us. We'd love to chat. Really, if you guys want to go over your scenario, what you can do to start positioning yourself to create wealth through real estate, DM us, give us a call. We're happy to chat. Let's dive into your situation, what we can do to help you do that. All right, guys, until next one, we'll see you guys in a couple weeks.
Thanks.
All right.